The state is still facing a 22% budget hole. Estimates for the next session are that it could be great as a 50% budget hole. It's important for you to internalize that discussion. We, as you know, were cut by 24% of our total budget, nearly $45 million, or maybe a little bit more, in the last 3 years since the 2007 budget came out. These cuts of 6.9% take us to 30% of the total state-funded UNLV budget gone in 3 years. It is our estimate that to date no other system has been hit this hard, this fast, anywhere else in the country, although I suspect there's some others that will be hit pretty hard over the next year because many other state budgets are crashing with this recession as the recession continues to hold, and it doesn't look like a V, it looks like a U-shaped recovery. The material translation of a 6.9% cut to the main campus, and for the most part, I'm going to omit discussion on the various budgeted components, including the law school, the dental school, intercollegiate athletics, statewide programs, and the Business Center South, because they each have their own plans that they're developing for dealing and coping with these cuts. I will refer now in the rest of this conversation to the cuts to the main campus of UNLV. Those cuts translate to $9 million and change. Now, the first thing you all need to understand is, as of July 1, we will have $9 million less. And between now and then, we have to figure out how we're going to get those funds. Before I give you the plan for how we hope to take the reductions or have to take the reductions, I'd like to talk to you just a little bit about the rest of what we have heard to date about the cuts and their allocation. The cuts administered to NSHE, to the best of our knowledge, will be distributed proportionally to the NSHE institutions. I have no knowledge of, at this time, what level of cuts the Nevada system of higher education may take to ameliorate the impact of the cuts on the individual or component institutions. And I don't believe that that number, when delivered, will be a large number. I do believe there'll be some trimming at the Nevada State higher education level, but probably not enough to take that 9 down significantly. The biggest concern that we had going into this session was that there would be more salary reductions, that the furlough system could be extended or replaced by pay cuts, that tenured faculty salaries would be cut in addition to the workload increases that have already been administered to them. Let's be clear on this. To date, we do not have any indication that there will be a change in the current furlough system or that tenured faculty will receive additional cuts. I will point out to you, however, that we have a board meeting coming up, and I'm sure that there'll be some level of discussion around all of these points. But I think that we're relieved. We explained clearly to our legislators that the furlough system was a terrible burden, particularly on our classified staff, and that we felt that any change in that and any increase, and you'll recall there were originally discussions of a 6% increase in salary cuts on top of the current furlough system, or if you didn't, you should know that was a point at one point, and that I think would have simply been devastating to particularly to classified staff. But I heard many others saying, I could lose my house over this. and I understand some have. And I can only say that we here in the university community cannot stand up and speak positively about salary cuts for you in such dire circumstances. Now, in addition to our hopes that we won't see those changes, it is possible that, and this is almost like death and taxes, that we could see benefits reductions at some level, or that we could have to pay more for benefits next year. That is not yet resolved. There are some technical details in here I'm not going to go into in detail. For example, they did not eliminate the 5% salary increase for state classified with bilingual and working out of class, and a few other details. I'm going to leave that. The state did pass a bill, however, indicating that it would like those on the furlough system to move to a rolling 4/10s system. Now, first of all, I went to the dictionary and tried to look up rolling 4/10s. And I found 18-wheelers, but I didn't find rolling 4/10s. I think most of you know that there was a proposal from the state that classified and professional staff would work 4 10-hour days rather than 5 8-hour days. We understand why that was passed, and I want to say I believe it would be that it would come at a fairly significant cost to our institution. The details of this have not yet been resolved. Whether it will be executed at an NSHE-wide level or a campus-wide level has not yet been resolved. We anticipate that this will be a vigorous topic of conversation in the Council of Presidents, with business officers, and in the Board of Regents meeting. And I'll leave it at that for now, because there's no point injecting opinions into a lack of knowledge. Other than it would cost us more money. We also lost $2.5 million in state facilities major repair and maintenance funding. About a third of that would come from UNLV campus projects. We're not clear why or how that was decided on, other than we anticipate there could be some reduction in our ability to maintain our physical facility as a result of that, to the tune of $800,000. We also, however, as serious as these cuts are, and as hard as they are going to be to take, we have to remember it could have been worse. It could have been somewhere in the range of 10 to 20%. We could have had salary cuts on top. And so while we will, I'm sure, wrestle with the confusion of implementation over the next month or two, I think it is a time to let the legislators who work very hard for us know and appreciate that what they have done for us made a difference. And we also need to let them know that we are behind them for the long haul. Because what was done in this session was a series of rather remarkable stopgaps to fill a huge budget challenge. What will have to happen in the next biennium is that we will have to find more permanent and sustaining solutions to these problems. And I believe that our legislators have signaled their intent to tackle those issues honestly and clearly, to the extent that the state is aware, major tax and fee payers in our state are aware that in order to have a prosperous future and a sustainable future and higher education and K-12 education in the future of this state, that we're going to have to make tough decisions to enhance revenue flows. So, for those of you who think mission accomplished, job done, I would submit to you that we've just begun. And I hate to distract you from your daily course of events with this, but know that we will need to mobilize and communicate again, if not in another special session in the next biennial budget, where we believe the level of deficit will be in fact significantly greater than it currently is without a nearly miraculous turnaround in the state's dominant industry. So be prepared to bring your case forward once more, and this time to ask our legislators to make tough calls to help fix this problem on more than a year-to-year basis. Again, though, congratulations due. I want to single out for recognition some of the great leadership roles that were played. I believe that our Speaker, Barbara Buckley, that our Senate Majority Leader, Stephen Horsford, that our Senate Minority Leader, Bill Raggio, Townsend, Heidi Gansert, Marcus Conklin, a number of other people. We need to cut $9 million out of our budget. But I think all of us have a legitimate fear that we'll be back where we are today in the fall or during the next biennial session. And I don't know about you all, but I'm tired of looking down for the floor of the valley, and I'd like to be on the floor looking up at the mountaintops once again. The problem with that is, how do we cut? How do we prepare? How do we face an uncertain future with greater looming deficits? What's the right level to cut? These are very complicated questions. I'm not going to try to solve them all today. As we learn more about how we're going to administer these, what NSHE regulations and rules are put on them, we'll be able to give you much more clarity. But I'm going to take a first stab at telling you how we plan to allocate. The core activity of this university is our academic programs. Students in the classroom are being taught and will continue to need to be taught. While the state has withdrawn 30% of its support, there's no practical way for us to magically reduce enrollment by 30% to match that withdrawal. It would mean students couldn't complete. It would mean we'd have to radically change the numbers of freshmen and transfer students that we had to accept. And more importantly, since we get revenues from students in the form of their tuition monies that stay on campus, significant loss of student enrollment would drive further revenue reductions. Significant revenue reductions that would in turn drive continued cuts. So as we look to how we will administer cuts, we now have some very Pyrrhic choices to make. I want to review where we are so that you understand to date what we've cut in case you've missed the last meetings. So far, the cuts that we've taken have been administered 50-50 between the vice presidential areas and the academic areas. The academic support areas are 25% of our budget in round numbers. Academics is about 75% of our budget. That means that the non-academic areas have been hit almost twice as hard as academic areas, and I know you feel it. You're not getting the level of service or support that you're used to. Our students aren't getting all access to the services that they would like as well as they can. But if we don't have kids in classes, we won't need services. So we need to do everything we can to maintain our services to our current students, to allow them to graduate, and to attempt to thoughtfully and gradually roll back in select areas. Our initial plan for how we will execute the $9 million in budget reductions is to try once more to administer approximately $5 million of those cuts to the non-academic side of the shop. That's a big number. It will mean further reduction of services. It will mean elimination of several major programs that are currently considered valuable parts of a UNLV education. I won't give specifics on this right now. I'm going to talk a little bit more about process. That also means we need to cut approximately $4 million from the academic side of the house. Now, that's a lot better than what we were thinking about cutting when we were going to cut 10% of our budget, but it's still a very serious number and a difficult number to attain. The easy thing to do, and what we've done to date, is we've simply taken cuts where they fall. Frozen positions, vacancies, have delivered to us the great majority of the funds we've cut in this first 24% of budget reductions over the last 2.5 years. What that does is it weakens the entire university. It causes strong programs to become attenuated because the truth is good faculty and good staff can be mobile and they can leave. And when they leave behind a hole now rather than a replacement of equal value. And so as we look at how we've taken the cuts, we are pretty convinced that continuing to cut horizontally is not our best strategy. We currently have a large number of vacancies. We will search and replace some of those. I will tell you it will be a very limited set. It will be done to preserve the continuity of critical programs, essential services, and things that our students can't live without. In addition, we will be, as of March 15th, sending out notification for another round of a voluntary separation incentive package, the so-called VSIP program, in which those who are nearing retirement may want to consider if they would like approximately a year buyout, and I'm going to say the details to follow, there will be some limitations on that, in exchange for retiring from university service. We believe that that will generate a significant revenue flow. Finally, on the academic side, and to a lesser extent on the academic support side, we will convene a faculty senate elected administrative group that will consider all of the proposals that come forward for programmatic elimination. This committee will also work in conjunction with the Faculty Senate Program Review Committee, which is being reconstituted shortly, so that we meet all code requirements and UNLV bylaw requirements for appropriate review of programs that will be eliminated for purposes of curricular reorganization. In other words, we will lose some departments. Now, I want all of you in this room to be assured that there will be departmental and unit loss in academic support areas, and this committee will get to see and review those recommendations, and that there will be the loss of departments in our university. I know it created a huge stir when we sent out a list and talked about how we would deal with 10% cuts. I think some people thought that was a gimmick. It wasn't a gimmick. One of the starting points for a conversation on how you look at program elimination is to make some quantitative assessments about program costs, the number of students, and the number of students involved. The list that was circulated was very simply derived. It was the top 20 most expensive programs in the university. I want you to all know that some of the highest quality programs in the university are on that list. Programs that I would consider it untenable to cut as a major research university. But somehow, we have to find our way through to a cut amount of uncertain numbers given the hiring freezes we've discussed and the VSIP program, and frankly, an uncertain future in terms of looking at more cuts. So we're going to begin this deliberative process with a series of recommendations that will be made by the provost and the VP for research, that will be delivered to this committee of 10, that will allow this committee to begin having thoughtful, deliberative hearings on what programs could potentially be eliminated. Now, I'm going to back up for a second, and I'm going to talk to you all about how efficient UNLV is, because I continuously hear things that simply aren't so. Last week, I was out at a community luncheon, and several business people said, hey, you know, you guys just cut a few administrators and you cut those stupid programs in the university and you'll be fine. We all know you waste a lot. I have no tolerance for comments like this anymore, and I'm afraid I snapped. Look at our university. Assess the programs in our university. The programs we have here look a lot like the programs that you'll find at any good quality university anywhere. They are very effectively administered. For those of you who think we waste money administering this university, nationwide, 12% of a major state university budget is typically committed to administrative support. When I got here, it was 6%. And I believe by the time this exercise is over, it will be approaching 4%. Our administration costs 1/3 of what it costs to administer most major state institutions. So if you think we're fat and wasting money on administration, I'm here to tell you that is not so. Another question that came up from one of our legislators was, yeah, but what's your management to staff ratio? Or more appropriately, your staff to management ratio? And I guess they must have thought we were bad. Well, you can look it up. It's online in IPED's data, which is the standard institutional data for all universities. Arizona State, 13-1. UNLV, 40-1. We're almost at the bottom, kind of like our educational expenditures in this state. And so for those who think we're fat and we have too much administration, please consider these numbers. I'm not arguing for more administration. I'm saying we're thin. The other comment I get, we'll just cut those crazy programs. Find them. Show them to me. I'll be happy to cut them. But that's what we've been doing for the last 3 years. We've been cutting low-yield programs, low-enrollment programs, programs that didn't make sense for UNLV. What we have left are programs with students in them, and faculty in them, and staff in them, and graduate students in them. Why did I select the top 20 most expensive programs? Because if I try to achieve any given level of cut with the highly efficient programs, I cut many more students. The approximate range of costs per FTE for students is vast. On the 20 most expensive programs list, the average cost of those programs was about $10,000 per FTE. We have programs that are running at $2,000 per FTE. First of all, how many of those programs would I have to cut to achieve the goals? And second of all, how many students would be lost if we did? So if the first rule is do the least harm possible, you have to look at expensive programs. The list that we produced had $36 million worth of programs on it. That is far larger than the cut number. Now, I will guarantee you that there isn't a dean who will come in to talk to us who won't tell us that every program on that list is a top quality program and should not be cut. Yet we still have to achieve about $4 million of cuts. And we need to achieve it by July 1st. So we think that we need to continue a process of looking at how we fund the university, how these programs are sorted, which programs are most core to our mission. And at some point, while it might not be that we have to make a decision immediately as of July 1 because of the other revenue moves we're making, the VSIPs and the freezes and everything else, we believe we will ultimately have to be prepared to make further cuts. And so we will run this process. We'll make it thoughtful, open, and deliberative. We will allow the constituencies involved to have a say. We will make some moves more quickly, and we will make other moves, the ones that cut closer to the bone or cut off limbs, much more slowly and deliberately. We don't want to overreact to these cuts, but we also don't want to be in a position of having to reinvent the wheel every time another budget cut rolls around. So we're in a tough spot. I am wide open to suggestions for how to most effectively handle not only what we have to do by July 1st, but to handle what we might have to do in the next 2 or 3 years as we begin planning and attempting to come out of this in the best shape we know how. One advantage of quicker decision making is to alleviate the concerns of those who will not be impacted. Right now, just because a program's on that list doesn't mean it will be cut. Just because a program's not on the list does not mean it won't be brought up. But we are having a vigorous conversation. One tiny point of order. This past year, I worked for and have received approvals in concept for administering differential tuitions. One mechanism that we can use to reduce the cost, the state cost of instruction, is to pass on the cost of some high-dollar programs directly to our students. There are areas you've heard me discuss, and I won't repeat them now. What I'll tell you is several of the programs on that list, in my opinion, would be very good candidates for charging differential tuition, and that the contributions of differential tuitions could help lower the total operating cost of those programs so that we could maintain them and continue to perform the vital services that they perform for our community. All right, I've talked way too long. I want to make a couple other quick assurances. First, we will roll out details of the planning horizon and the vertical cut process on our website. We will keep you posted as to the interpretation of legislative actions in this special session so that you understand how we plan to implement them. We will continue to make critically needed hires in programs that we either depend on, have high demand, or are part of our mainstream strategic mission. Finally, and most importantly, for anyone who falls victim to the cuts that we're going to take, we will honor all appropriate notification periods, and we will honor tenure. With that, I'm going to ask you to do something that's hard right now. As the attention turns away from what I felt was a really cohesive and cogent period of unity for our campus in which we fought the cuts and worked together, I recognize that when we begin administering cuts, that the natural reaction will be to turn inwards and to begin fighting amongst ourselves. I will tell you I know this is hard. I know that what we're going to do is going to be difficult and challenging. I know that there will be groups of people who lose their jobs in this process. But we have to maintain our alignment and cogency as an institution. Because if we fall to pieces now, it will make it very, very hard for us to be able to defend ourselves against what I believe are the inevitable cuts to come, and to continue to build as we recognize what our core mission is. So please continue to work together. Expand the dialogue that we're having. Let's try to keep it focused on preserving the integrity of our institution. And while I believe, as I've said before, that we will emerge smaller and more focused, it will depend on all of you if we emerge as a higher quality institution when this is all over. I look forward to receiving your comments, your inputs. We will certainly be holding more discussions on this topic. And at this point, I would like to open it up for questions from any of you who have concerns that we haven't addressed yet. Thank you very much.
Neil, I've followed the unveiling of the program review plan up at UNR that was released yesterday, which included timelines for notification of departments that are under elimination. Also included a timeline for response from departments, then a college level review, then a faculty senate review. Beyond the formation of this committee that you just talked about, are there some timelines in place other than the June 30th timeline?
In case you didn't hear it, the question is, what's the timeline for the review process that we're going to administer? And what I'm going to tell you is, as of yesterday, I was planning on having to have vertical cuts available as early as April. And that would have had a timeline that had us finished with this process by the end of March in order to meet the notification periods for a board meeting. At this time, I would tell you, I think that was a very aggressive timeline. I would prefer that we were not required to bring forward at least the first round of vertical cuts until the, I guess it's the June board meeting. And that means we have a little bit more time. I will hope that at least whatever our first round of considerations are, and I do believe that we will lose some programs in that first round, that we will be done in early May. I think that gives us much more time for feedback and deliberation. The initial recommendations that will be made are going to be put forward by the middle of this month. They will then go to the committee, the joint committee, who has a tremendous amount of authority to review those decisions, request additional information, hold consultation with the individual departments. And one commitment that I've made to our students, because they really deserve this commitment, is that they too will be consulted in this process and be stakeholders in the decisions that are made because of what they've contributed to us in this past year and 2-year process. So we will make sure that that occurs. I would guess that we'll be finalizing decisions at least, again, and I'm going to say for a first round. I hate to depress you by talking about multiple rounds, but I think this process will require a round 1. Those decisions should be finalized by April. At that point, the recommendations of the committee will go forward to the cabinet and to my office, and they will simultaneously go forward to the program review committee of the faculty senate, which will have an opportunity to weigh in on them, and then final decisions will be rendered in time for a June board meeting. That's my current plan. John, do you want to address that? You're going to have to come up here.
Yes, there has been some question about that program review committee, and I encourage you all to look at Section 19 in the UNLV Faculty Senate bylaws. Under the current set of circumstances, the Board of Regents has not declared financial exigency, but I want to give our president a great deal of credit here. He is committed to all of the protections that are contained in our bylaws. So if you look at section 19.8 in the UNLV Faculty Senate bylaws, and I hate to sound like an attorney, I apologize for that, you will find that it refers to the Priority and New Program Review Committee. And the Priority and New Program Review Committee is in the process of being elected. Those people are the ones that will receive from, at the same time, the recommendations for the Program Review Committee, which is the committee that has actually 11 members on it if you count the non-voting chair, 6 of whom will be elected from the Faculty Senate membership. Those recommendations will simultaneously go to the President, the Cabinet, and to the Priority and New Program Review Committee as per the requirements of 19.8. Thank you.
Okay, I'm out here in the center.
I have a question for classified and professional employees who are taking advantage of the grant and aid and being able to go to school, as well as being a part of staff here at UNLV. To what extent do you know whether that will be affected? And also, is there a general list that we can access? Because some of us are in very small programs and we don't know whether those programs are the ones on the academic possible chopping block, so that we can prepare, or is it just a more internal list?
You asked 2 questions. Grants and aid, as far as I know, will continue. Jerry, is there any plan to modify that program?
There isn't any discussion about eliminating or significantly reducing the current program. The only comment I was going to make is that it consumes resources like anything else, and to the extent that if more people came and took courses, there would be some impact eventually on it. But right now, that isn't one that I'm aware of that anyone is looking at.
The second part of your question is something I failed to cover, and I'll give you my apologies for that. One thing you have to understand is that if we actually eliminate a program, for example, the left-handed widget manufacturing program, department. Yeah, John just said it has to stay. Okay. If we eliminated that program, what we would have to do according to our accreditors is that we would have to give a reasonable period of time for students who are in the program in major classification to graduate from that program. So don't think that all programs would drop off the table in a very short period of time. The kind of wind down that we're talking about is something that for every single department that is named or slated for elimination would probably occur over a 2 to 4 year period. And along the way, we would be making sure that students in those programs were allowed to graduate in good form. All right, so we will maintain our commitment to students being able to graduate from programs that may be impacted.
And I'm looking for hands again. I'm over toward the right side. And I've got you over there too.
If a department is eliminated, what happens to the displaced classified staff?
Any classified staff impacted would go through the normal process that's defined by the state. And so there is a bumping process, and it would be handled through human resources and the like. And so it would be based generally, if you're not familiar with it, it's based on seniority. And so all those issues would have to be looked at. But I'd also say to the extent there were other openings on campus, HR would make a concerted effort to see what the possibilities were for placing those individuals. Those types of issues have to come up on an individual basis, but we're prepared to support them through human resources to the extent possible. Yes, that would be, I'm answering specifically relative to the bumping rights and everything relative to state classified, but Neil's reminding me that all that would be true for any impacted individual to the extent possible, but the bumping aspects under the state requirements are unique to state classified.
Okay, now, we have Dr. Harder up in front.
Yeah, thank you. Neil, the last time you had a town meeting, we had some regents here and we had the chancellor. And we asked very pointedly, I think, were there going to be vertical cuts from the system, from the larger NG system on the table for discussion? He said yes. Other regents sort of nodded. From what I can see, and again, I'm out of the loop these days, but from what I can tell, it seems as if those major issues, mergers and acquisitions, for example, where certain smaller units or units that are new to state funding or new to the state might be in some way or another combined with the larger institutions. So far, we don't see much evidence of that. And yet, clearly, the process that you are about to embark on here is a model for making vertical cuts. Is there any chance that that will be replicated at the system level or even started at the system level? She said sweetly.
First of all, Carol, when you say you're out of the loop, no one in the room believes you. Second of all, you know we had a vigorous discussion, and I will tell you that I've made the pointedly and forcefully in Council of Presidents meetings and with regents and with Chancellor Claich, that if we are going to be asked to experience the pain of vertical cuts, and we are being asked, and I believe that at this point there's an expectation of it on our campus, that the same types of painful decisions are made by the Nevada system of higher education. Just because I've said it doesn't make it true. And so I will suspect that there's going to be a brisk internal conversation and that proposals will be brought forward for consideration by the Board of Regents. I cannot tell you with any certainty that they will create significant revenue streams. And so at this point, I think our planning is best met by sticking to the dollar amount that we have. I will say, however, that I believe that what I said, which was vertical cuts should be considered at every layer of organization, is a highly relevant one. And I'm going to leave it at that in part because
you have to.
I don't think there's a situation where you really need presidents discussing the fates of other presidents unilaterally. Okay?
Is it clear to them, though, that UNLV and UNR have consistently now over several years received multiple millions of dollars in cuts, more than, I think, out of proportion, because there are more students and more money there, of course. But on the other hand, what do you want as a system of higher education if you don't want two major research universities to guide your whole state and its future? And this horizontal stuff over and over and over again simply cripples everyone, as we've repeatedly said. How do we maybe lobby? I realize, Neil, that as a president you can't do this directly in those settings. But sooner or later, the voice of people who are in these situations needs to be heard by the regents and the chancellor.
Well, let me be plain, because there's a part of this I have to respond to and I will take a public stance on. And if anybody doesn't think I'm talking about this, I think they would simply have to understand that I won't necessarily partake in a public dialogue on this topic. There is part of a public dialogue, though, that I think is relevant and important, Carol. In brief, if you look at what's happened in education in Nevada, K-12 had a 10% increase in the last biennium. Most of the community colleges had a 0% decrease in funding. UNLV and UNR had 15.3% decreases in funding, and that was on top of ad hoc and previous cuts that we'd taken for formula reasons. Here's the simple truth. The formula does not work in a budget-cutting environment. You know that as well as anyone. The formula pays for heads. Community college financing is radically different than research university financing. Community colleges make money when they hire a part-time instructor for $2,000 and get 30 kids to sit in front of that person. What is the incentive not to grow? As long as they're growing, they will continue to absorb an increasingly high percentage of formula funding. So here's the challenge. In an expanding pie, we might hold on, but as the pie stays the same or shrinks, and community college enrollment grows, which it would in a recession climate, UNR and UNLV are being slowly but surely squeezed out of existence. So you're right. I don't think that formula serves. And I think it's up to us to make sure that in the next legislative session, that formula is reconsidered so that we can maintain high quality education in this state for once and for all. So, sorry, but you know.
Okay, over toward the left side, and if I could ask you to raise your hands nice and high between questions, I'll come get over to you.
Yeah, I'd like to, ask for clarification about what does it mean to say you will honor tenure and we will honor the students who are already here. Does that mean concretely that a department would, if it's slated for disappearance, that its tenure track faculty would disappear right away and the tenured folks would stay around to teach the students until they graduate and then the tenured folks would move to some other department? Is that what it means? Because it's very unclear concretely.
And it's not going to be more clear concretely immediately.
Okay.
All right? I can talk to you about the intent, and I will tell you that I imagine for every department that is slated for elimination, there will be a unique exit plan for that department that will be thoughtfully and clearly discussed. The students in those programs will be given a reasonable chance to graduate. Now, students, I know some of you are on the slow route and maybe take 5 to 8 years. We'll have to work a little more aggressively than that for the elimination of a program, and we will talk about that, identify the student flow into the program, truncate additional enrollment by closing it out, and then develop an exit strategy, not only so that students have a reasonable period of time, but that the critically needed faculty who serve those students have the time that's needed to offer those courses across that time frame. As far as all the other personnel decisions that are made, I will tell you that almost certainly people without the protection of tenure would not maintain their job status when the program was eliminated. I don't want to say that, but I think it's honest. Tenured faculty would certainly be given every incentive and encouragement to find a new position elsewhere or to be reassigned into some place where we have critical needs for resources. I hope that that's a good match. It may not be, and that's part of the trauma of what we're going through right now, and we'll simply try to do the best we can. So that's why there's ambiguity to it, Lois, and thank you for asking the question.
The regents are elected officials. We do elect them and we vote for them. I know that they have our best interests at heart. I know they don't want program cuts. I know that this is not popular with them either. So I'm saying this with no disrespect to the regents or to the system of higher education. But I would suggest, and I would encourage that all of you email the regents to ask them what is their plan. Are they really going to let UNLV and UNR, the research institutions of the state, close down programs, especially from what I've been hearing about UNR, the focus on major graduate programs there? I don't think that that's right. And I don't think that for 2 research universities in this state, which will drive us eventually out of this recession, that is any sort of possibility. So I think that if you have concerns, you should email them and ask them questions. They're online, or you can email me and I will send you a spreadsheet I have with their photos. It's Jessica Lucero. I'm in Lotus Notes, so jessica.lucero@unlv.edu. They are elected and they do like to hear from people. So please, and respectfully, because they are advocates for higher education. I think it's important that we not necessarily just already assume that we have to do this already. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. More questions?
Okay, Neil, if we have to save this $9 million by July 1st, right? I just don't understand, how does, let's say, eliminating a department achieve that if the department then has to stay open for 2 or 3 years? I just don't understand that conceptually.
It doesn't. That's part of the problem. We've had a long set of discussions in the Council of Presidents, and the facts are that the only two components of Nevada System of Higher Education that are going to have to address these cuts or these budget reductions by vertical cuts are UNR and UNLV. We believe that we can count on getting back about 20% a year. That's after the first year. We believe the first year will be tied up in a series of separation incentives and other types of revenue producing things, which means we have, or not revenue, expenses, which means we need some kind of bridge funding to be able to achieve the full level of cut. And so even the VSIP program, it's good for a year from July 1st, but it isn't going to help us in the next fiscal year. But again, I think that's it's a good illustration of how failing to prepare for the cuts and rollbacks, which take years to deliver effectively in a planning horizon of 3 months, is not very realistic. And so what I'm saying and suggesting to you is we'll work out the details of how we're going to survive in the short run, and next year is the hardest year to bridge. We believe the following year will be in nearly revenue neutral condition, that in the year after that, depending on the biennial budgets that are administered, we hope we're not just taking all the money that we saved from those program cuts, accruing at the rate of approximately 20% a year, and throwing it back into the cut pile because we had to do this again. But that's part of the longer range approach to how we're going to deal with these cuts. If we are in the fortunate situation of not having to recut in the next biennium, then the revenues from the programs that were cut as they accrued would be redirected to build core strengths and strategic mission in the other programs of the university. There's a question way down.
All the way in the back. Okay.
What can you tell students and alumni concerned about the value of their degrees from programs that will no longer exist?
There are plenty of people who have degrees from programs that are funked in specific universities, and the truth is that most of the value of your degree after you leave the university accrues to the university reputation and not to a specific program. So the first thing I'll tell you is UNLV is committed to a long-range future in which we add value to our alumni degrees by building the quality and reputation of UNLV. This is a setback, make no mistake. It's very challenging to talk about quality and cuts in the same sentence. Yet the goal for this university has to be that through the cuts we make, which are strategically administered, we continue to build strength as a university. So the first thing you need to know is UNLV's reputation is the most important value-added component to your degree. The second thing I'll tell you is that individuals provide value for their degree through what they do. I doubt many of us were hired purely because of where our degree was and what department it was in. The majority of us were hired because we proved something. We think that you will still be proving things as an alum of UNLV. You'll make us proud, and that will give you the career trajectory that you need.
From the back of the room, looking forward. Any hands? Any more questions? Okay, up. Two of them, one in the middle, one up front.
I think we'll take like maybe 3 more total.
Okay. I just wanted to know if you're in a position to talk about the increase in student tuition and fees related to the budget deficits.
In an honest but probably unpopular stance with our students, I've said that I believe part of our bridge funding, and this gets also back to the question Reiner asked, will probably be a result of increasing tuition modestly. I worry about that in some ways because we need to understand the details of how tuition increases will accrue back to our campus. And I will tell you that a revised letter of intent appears to be in hand. We do not know the details of it. And so there are some technical issues that I need to be more clear on before I can tell you what benefit raising student fees will bring to our students here at UNLV. I think it's a sad statement that we are UNR and UNLV are the only two components that are going to have to participate in vertical cuts and will require the bridge funding. I'll also tell you that I believe that student tuition change is going to have to be a part of that mix for UNLV. Traditionally in system, if one component raises tuition, the other components do too, which means UNLV and UNR are usually in lockstep from a tuition perspective so that students don't shop. So the specific outcome of this discussion will reside in the Board of Regents and any agreements that President Glick and I can come to.
Okay. One of my questions is I'm trying to figure out which of the programs are going to be potential. Hello? Yes, and I'm trying to figure out how are you going to ensure that these students that are already in this program is going to graduate? Like, are you going to start from the junior level, the sophomore level, the freshman?
I doubt that we're going to start from the freshman level, to be honest. I suspect we're going to start at the point where in some departments you're admitted to a major. In some departments there's a fairly predictable trajectory. I would suspect that at a minimum, juniors who were entering juniors as a major would be given the opportunity to graduate in a 2-year period, and that we would do our best to ensure that any student committed to that particular career track got that education or an equivalent education and degree. So I'm going to say we're going to try, but we're not going to offer 4, 5, 6 year continuation for students who aren't moving as fast. And we will look at the demographics of each program to try to determine where the bulk of students and majors are and provide the best advising counseling that we know how to help you find a satisfactory and productive track. One more if there is.
In order to save somebody's job, or many people's jobs, are we going to, have you thought about just asking all of us as employees to take a 5% or a 10% cut in our salaries, our benefits, so that some people can retain their jobs? I'd be happy to help in that way.
The question was, have we considered cutting salaries a modest amount so that everyone hurts a little as opposed to some people hurting a lot? I will tell you that that's not a decision that will be made on a campus-by-campus basis. And I think it's important to me and to everyone in this room to know that whatever treatment we receive is going to be equitable amongst all Nevada State higher education components. Should we volunteer that and vote it as a campus, which if Richard Lindstrom's out there, he's shaking his head, no, it'll never happen, Neil, and don't even try. That, even if in some fantasy world, Richard, we got that to happen, I think people would say, sure, great, wonderful, and we'd be down and everybody else would be up, and then I would be placing the faculty staff here at a competitive disadvantage for years to come. So I'm simply going to say this will be a system decision. It will not be a campus-by-campus decision, and I believe that in the interest of equity and fairness, all components of the system need to be treated the same way. Well, I wish, again, that we could come here under much better circumstances. I think one of the victims of infinite cuts and the death of 1,000 cuts is that we are distracted and pulled away from the core mission of this university, which is to guarantee a high-quality education to our students and wonderful scholarship that supports our community, and to be that place that makes a difference in Las Vegas. I have to tell you, as hard as this is, there are going to be some things that happen that make us better understand our structure from a business perspective, more responsive to how we administer costs of programs, more able and more prepared to know how to grow strategically and to not squander resources, but to focus them in the most critically needed areas, to maintain the core of excellent programs that we have at this university. And finally, I believe, as difficult as this is, as challenging as this is, and as personally traumatic to many of you as this has been, that we will emerge stronger and more prepared to serve our state in the future, and that we will begin, and I think the process began this session, to make our community and our state appreciate what it is they're cutting and what they could lose. And I can't tell you enough that we need to stay together and stay focused to make sure that people appreciate the good things that we do in this university, and that we can continue to serve the way you have all so well served over the past years. Thank you all very much.